Your attention, please. Attention, please.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
Jamie, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
No worries, man.
I've been harassing you for the last few weeks to come on.
I've been average on the gram. I've been average. I'm pretty piss poor with my messages on there. It's about trying to get better.
No, I appreciate it. And then we got here this morning, and then I didn't realise that the door was like lock coded, time sensitive.
And the alarm starts going off.
Yeah, it was a fucking nightmare. But hey, we're here. We got it sorted.
Thanks
for coming on. Mate, I wanted to bring you on because you're probably one of the first coaches I'd met in Australia that, rather than being a bodybuilding coach or rather than being a weight loss coach, you designed something called weapon training. I fucking loved it. And you were the first coach I kind of worked with who was like, I want you to be able to run, lift heavy, fucking do Muay Thai, do Jiu-Jitsu, and you just kind of develop this kind of training style that kind of is built for pretty much anything that life throws at you. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, well, I can't say I designed anything or even weapon training. I just like calling people weapon. But yeah, I haven't really got a name for it, and I can't really claim creating a specific style. I guess like looking at certain people. Obviously, my own experiences have led me to have certain biases with training. Like I did the whole like I want to be as jacked as possible and lean and whatever else, and train like that in my teens and early 20s. And it's not everything, especially coming from like an athletic background and playing sport or moving athletically. It's just like, yeah, it's fun, but it doesn't. It didn't give me the same satisfaction as moving explosively or running did, or even like my main sports is Muay Thai and boxing.
Yeah, I love that.
So like actually feeling like an athlete, getting a pump was cool and seeing changes in your body, like loved that and still do. But having that as like the primary just mode of training didn't do it for me. And I'm definitely like all over the place in terms of what I need from a stimulus standpoint, just not just in training but in life. Like I need different inputs, you know what I mean? Otherwise they get stale or get bored very easily.
100%.
And I think sometimes people look at that as like a bad thing, or sometimes it's just the reality. You know what I mean? Like the reality is some people are more prone to be able to embrace mundane and do the same thing all the time, and some people aren't. They're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole and be like, you must do this singular thing and embrace boredom, otherwise you are a loser.
Oh my God,
it's just like, man, it's just not how it works. That's a surefire way to get someone to dislike training. You know what I mean?
Completely agree. And I guess if you looking at what the end goal is, right? Like you said, if the end goal is to just get as jacked as possible, then there probably are more maybe like consistent and mundane ways to train. But like if you just like want to be able to lift and then want to be able to perform and then want to go do boxing or Muay Thai or something, there's a variance in training that you can kind of do that will allow you to do that, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like I think I worked within strength and conditioning and sports performance. You see, like you're coaching people to jump and you're making sure that people are sprinting and changing direction, and like the conditioning isn't programmed just in a linear fashion, but and also programming conditioning and just making sure that you're covering all bases there. Like if you think of strength and conditioning for an athlete, it's like give them what they're not getting. You know what I mean? Like if they're playing sport, strength and conditioning is you give them what they're not getting.
Yeah.
If they're not being exposed to enough max velocity within training, expose them to max velocity. If they're not doing as much, change of direction or reactive work, make sure you expose them to that. So you're doing that sort of stuff, and it's like that sort of training was reserved for athletes as opposed to just a general gym goer, training like a sports performance athlete, because you don't play a sport.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like that didn't click to me when I was in my early 20s first working in sports performance.
Yeah.
So still training like a bodybuilder. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I can do some cardio alongside. I tried to do the powerlifting thing, just straight squat, bench, deadlift, and did it. And it's fun. It's definitely fun, but again, not purely that for me. Because again, I get bored.
Yeah.
And I think the whole myth is like, or has been, it's very much changing now. The whole myth has been, if you do cardio alongside your lifting, you are going to make no gains.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing. So a lot of people are like, why are you doing cardio for? Why are you running for? Whatever else. It's just going to get in the way, which it's just not true. Obviously, there's an amount that's going to make it harder to get stronger and bigger, but you're probably going to still see progress with cardio.
And would it be one of those things as like where you're placing that in your training block? Like if you're smashing a big run or cardio before your lifts, that's probably going to hinder your actual lifting performance, right? So would you always be reserving cardio for back end of the workout?
Like, yes and no. Like, you would try to structure the training week in a way so to minimize, I guess, the effect of soreness on those sessions.
Yeah.
You try to consolidate training sessions. So if you're doing like a lower body workout, maybe have a higher intensity interval day the same day to consolidate that. Two fast switch dominant sort of endeavors. So that way you've got that all in one day, and then you're reserved for other stuff later in the week. Or you might have your long run a little bit later in the week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that sort of shit. But you can't really hide from soreness.
Yeah.
When doing sort of hybrid training or
Yeah.
concurrent training. Life dictates a lot of what we do. You might have the perfect structure. If something comes up, you can't do that afternoon session, you're going to have to run on trash legs the next day. It is a part of it. I know it deters people, but like fatigue masks fitness. It's not that session goes to waste completely. It's just you're going to feel heavy. Maybe your objective sort of output or those metrics might not be where they would be if you were completely fresh.
Yeah.
Or you had done it in the, I guess, the ideal training week, but you're still going to get a stimulus.
Yeah. Okay.
When fatigue washes away after a taper or a deload or whenever you are less fatigued or when there is a better structured training week, because life didn't get in the way, you're probably going to be able to express that fitness better.
Okay, I see.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So say if we're taking like a running example, even if you weren't able to hit your specific 5K splits or your 1K splits, despite you not be able to hit in those training times or running times, that is still going to be a stimulus. It's still going to have a positive impact on your training down the line anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like your body doesn't know the pace you're running. It just knows how hard it's working. You know, like the effort that you're exerting. And that's why the whole RPE thing or auto-regulation by way of, subjective measures of intensity works well if someone is around RPE or around RIR or really knows how hard they're working relative to a max effort.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So it's effort based.
Yeah. And then with that being said, then say when you do then go into that training, running, cardio with fresh legs, when you have got the perfect planned session, your body's going to actually respond to that better than it would because you've been doing those sessions previously fatigued.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're just going to be able to express better performance.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
it. You've still been developing fitness. It's not like I ran on trash legs so this session's gone to waste. It's like, no, that's fucking...
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
That
You know what I
makes
mean?
sense.
You've still exposed the body to a stimulus.
Yeah,
all right, your numbers might not have been there, but you're still doing what's necessary to progress the systems of the body that are going to drive like quality performance.
That makes sense. I really liked when I was working with you that the kind of annualized approach to training that you take. I remember you saying you could kind of look at your training on a kind of annualized, going like there may be a hypertrophy block where actual cardio or like powerlifting might not be the key focus, but we can actually go into a bit of a muscle gain focus here. And then there might be other times of the year where there'll be different focuses, depending on what your schedule's throwing at. I imagine for you coming from like a Muay Thai or a boxing background, if you had fights coming up, your training would differ drastically at different parts of the year.
Yeah. So I like to keep all qualities going at once. So if you are prepping for something that does require more conditioning, it's not like you throw out all your strength training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you still want to try your best to build muscle and build strength. It's just that the volume might be a bit lower.
Yeah, okay.
Or the rep ranges might differ slightly or whatever else, whatever you're not getting as sore from. But your cardio, your conditioning work is up. And then when that bias does change, it's like, all right, we're trying to look as good as we can for summer. Your lifting volume will come up, your frequency might increase.
Yeah.
We don't throw conditioning out.
Yeah.
We just keep that going. So rather than
Turn
have...
the dial on what needs...
Yeah, it's like a dimmer switch.
Yeah.
That's it. As opposed to a hypertrophy block, a strength block, this block.
Okay.
It's more a hypertrophy bias or a peaking
I like
bias towards strength.
Rather than just throwing everything out the window and go, we're not focused on that now for the next 12, 16 weeks.
Exactly, because by the time you get back to it...
You're fucked.
Yeah, because like the maintenance... The volume for maintenance for any quality... Well, not any quality. There's some qualities that require a little bit more to maintain than others. But the quality for maintenance as opposed to for progression, like it's completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you need fuck all to maintain.
Yeah.
Strength and size, you don't need that much.
It's like 2 to 3 sessions a week at that, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's not really that much at all. So you don't throw it out. Like you keep it going. And this thing, even if you still train it hard enough, you're probably going to still make gains.
Yeah, fair
You know what I mean? Unless you're super advanced.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, when you get into that really top advanced, that's when the kind of the minuscule changes are really hard to get. Because
Yeah, exactly.
You're so advanced, yeah. That makes
Exactly. So yeah, I'm not about. I don't think I'm about just like a hypertrophy block per se.
sense. Okay,
You know
it's
what I
a
mean?
hypertrophy bias, but then maybe they're just small biases over the course of the year, depending on what the goal is.
That's it. Like if someone's doing it, it's like, I want to give everything to this endurance event. You know, I might do 4 endurance sessions and I'll keep my lifting at twice per week.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, hey, I want to get as jacked as possible for summer, it's just inverse.
Yeah,
You know?
okay.
It's not as like, it's not always that,
Yeah.
but that's just an example. You might flip that, lift 4 times per week, and then conditioning 2 sessions per week. You might have like a polarized approach. You might have like max velocity, some intervals, and then you can have your long run, like anything like that. Like that's just a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because you don't. I wouldn't recommend if you want to be this all-round athlete, just throwing everything out each time that you're shifting bias.
Yeah. So I guess it comes down to the goal of the individual athlete or person in question, right? Because say if you have someone probably like yourself or me, you're Muay Thai, boxing, like that kind of more sport background, and then you want to lift and then you want to have muscle. For myself, it's kind of similar, but jiu-jitsu or football or whatever that may be. So having that kind of different biases at different times of the year will be very, very effective to be able to maintain and then progress. For someone who is I just want to get as jacked as possible, do you then switch up the kind of training modality or anything like that?
Yeah, 100%. I just ask them.
Yeah.
I just ask them. Like I have people that want to get as jacked as possible, but they still want to. They don't want to feel like if they did decide to go for a run, they couldn't. Like I recommend it as a blanket rule, like not even a rule, but like maybe doing some cardiovascular activity is a good thing for general health. You know what I mean? Like even if you don't want to run the fastest 10K or 5K possible or do a triathlon, I think at a bare level, like maybe it's good to do. You know what I mean?
At basic human level, you being able to run a 5K at some distance.
Maybe just sit on the bike for half hour, like anything like that. You know what I mean? Like
that's going to aid your human function rather than just getting as swole as possible and then being unable to move or getting out of breath walking up the stairs.
And even just from a strength training standpoint, I think having a degree of cardiovascular fitness is going to help that. Like if you recover better between sets,
of course,
you're going to increase potential for quality output with subsequent sets over the length of a session. If someone's super unfit, you probably see them struggle to get through 6 sets if they are training too far. You know what I mean? Like if they've squatted first up, something hard and actually push that to an intensity that
their actual difficult. Training intensity by the back end of that session might be absolute.
Yeah, exactly. So I think volume tolerance is affected by cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never really thought of it like that, actually.
So, like if someone goes, I want to get as jacked as possible, maybe this as a secondary quality to train, you can adapt to anything without cardio. You know what I mean? Like if you progressed into a high volume, full blown bodybuilding program without you can do it. You know what I mean? You can do it. For general health, I would recommend it. But if someone says, "Hey, I want to get as jacked as possible," I'd say, "Yeah, cool. Let's just lift." You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to push that onto anyone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
enough.
Like I don't just because my bias is have a bit of this, bit of that, bit of this in there. Doesn't mean if someone says to me, "We're going to do this," I'm going to say, "This is how you're training."
That's wrong because that's not the way I want to do it. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. So it's do what you want, really.
And do you find that a lot of the people that you work with have a similar mindset with you on training and what their kind of end goals are?
Yeah, well, I think just with the way that I get clients, it's all through social media. So with social media, it is very much like my opinion or my bias towards training. And then usually the people that reach out to you is someone that has a similar bias to you or that agrees with you. You're not going to get someone that completely disagrees with your viewpoints signing up.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
actually a very valid point,
So most of those people generally do have my bias. But a lot of people know that, like even with that, I think just with the way that I talk about it, I'm not going to push something onto them.
Yeah, fair play.
I think it's just sort of assumed, just judging by like thinking about my client list at the moment. I have a fair chunk that train similar to me. And then some that are just like, I don't need to jump or I don't need to like push my cardio.
Yeah.
Like
fair.
I'll do some cardio, but I don't need to push it. Body
Yeah.
composition is my primary focus. Strength and body comp.
Yeah, fair play. Fair play.
So yeah, it's probably that blend.
Talking about the social media thing, you mentioned earlier, we were chatting before you came on, and we were talking about like social media. You are not down the route of the cheesy reels with the clickbaity hooks. That's not your kind of style of content, is it?
Nah, like I think about it, and I think about doing that. Like like I still think about a hook.
I
you
can't
know what I mean?
think of you going like. I can't picture a video of you been in the gym with like a really clickbaity hook. I can't imagine it. I feel like every time I think of your content, it's very much like a systemized approach with like you doing a lift with then your thoughts on it. And I think that way you kind of get people to buy into what your philosophy is on training.
That's still a hook.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's still a hook. Like there's still, like it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sadly, you're gonna think about it. It's like everyone's vying for attention. It's like how are we gonna get it? It is gonna be with a hook.
Yeah.
Of some sort. It just depends how you want to package that.
Yeah.
For me, I just like I don't know. I can't.
You can't see yourself doing
I
that.
still obviously want to refine it and be like, you know, if I can grab someone's attention within that first line through sentence structure, like I think that's interesting to me. You know what I mean? It's still like,
I like that.
how to convey a message. I think it's interesting. Like it is definitely something that I do want to get better at. And, you know, looking at content development is something that's like it's enjoyable. You know what I mean? Like putting something together that can convey my message in a way that doesn't feel like I'm compromising my integrity. I think that's like important to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, for sure, man. I could get out there with some fucking like super hard thing. And I've done that before. I've done it before and like, I don't know, it just makes me feel a bit yuck.
Yeah, no,
You know, it's
exactly.
like, and it's just like, well, that's getting in the way of you making dollars. Like, yeah, but then I look at so many people that are doing it in their way that it doesn't look like they're compromising their integrity at all. And I'm like, it's possible. You know what I mean? So just to say that, you know, this is the landscape, you must conform to this way of expressing a message. It's just not, it's just not it. Like they all still have a hook. You know what I mean? There's still a hook in some capacity. But they're not compromising their integrity saying, I don't know, if they have an example. Like you still can do it in a way.
That it's true to you and true to your message without having to kind of sell your soul a little bit to the algorithm gods.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, it's possible, you know. And then I look at it. I look at those guys. Obviously, I'm fucking not killing it on Instagram or whatever in that capacity. But you know, and some people will talk about it. Like it's not all about followers either. Like I've you know spoken to guys that have got 30K followers on the gram, and you know they had a few reels that popped off. But that goes out to an audience that isn't exactly like bought into your, you know, core message.
Yeah,
they're bought into that flashy thing that you did on reels that popped off. Then they come to you and then they see your core message. And they're like, dude, fucking dumb it down, man. And so like, I'm not writing to you, bro. Like, I'm not. This isn't for you.
Yeah, you saw something that I posted, really like that. You've come to me, but that's not actually a representative of like how I kind of perceive my training or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just like, yeah, all right, you might have gone from 10K followers to 30K, but that 20K aren't as engaged as that initial 10K. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a vanity metric.
Yeah, okay. It's really easy, though, in the kind of modern day social media world to chase the vanity metrics of following, isn't it? Because I think, especially, I don't have a big following at all, but like, you assume big following equals big dollars or big following equals success, but it's more necessary that those people are bought into who you are more so than anything.
Yes.
And I think probably with your following, it's, like you said, it's not massive, but you've probably got a lot of engagement in that. People know who you are, what you talk about, and kind of what you represent, I think.
Yeah, well, I think it's just been like, I haven't done it in a while. Like I used to be more active, without a doubt, and I'm trying to build that back up again, but just being yourself, I guess. I think that's probably a big thing. Like I think people can smell it. Like whether they know it. And whether they know it or not, I think they can smell it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it's. Yeah, I think people can smell. And it's just like it's such a corny word, especially in this like day and age. But like authenticity. I think people just know. I think people know. There's some people that get sucked in, and that's whatever. But like I think people just know.
You can-
whether or not you're full of shit. Even if they don't know it, they know.
Yeah, like
You know?
you think people now are so used to. Everyone's got like a bullshit radar, and,
Yeah.
and if someone's coming across them, they're like, I'm not sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I agree with that.
So I don't know, man. I've had people sign up because I posted a song on my Insta story. You
I
know
know,
what
I
I mean? And they're
understand,
like,
yeah.
oh, what a mad. I don't want to say the C word.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, fucking on ya. You know what I mean? Like, done, bro. Like, I was about your shit beforehand, but that was the thing that tipped me over.
I love that. That's
And
funny.
I was like, cool. Like, that wasn't intentional, but like, man, done.
That's
We'll
hilarious.
work. And then you're like, I don't know, because with that as well, I look at the people that I coach.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the people that I coach, and when I was posting shit that I felt like was more for I'm trying to appeal to, trying to show how smart I am,
Yeah.
or trying to show this or that, I attracted people, but either they fucking hated working with me when they really saw what I was like,
Yes.
which is like, I'm not an asshole, but
You
we
said
just
how
didn't
it
gel
is.
personality-wise,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Not even like that. I'm not even that much of a hard ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they just didn't gel
Yeah.
with that sort of thing, because it's like maybe the message I was putting out conveyed that I was a different person altogether.
So like you said, that authenticity of like conveying your message of kind of how you come across, it's going to help your client experience on the back end. Because when they finally sign up to work with you, you want them to be like, yeah, this guy is who I thought he was,
Yeah.
rather than who the fuck's this fella? I'm
Yeah,
working with?"
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then even just like, look, this is the thing. As a coach, you have to be a chameleon in some aspect.
Yeah.
I think they were always fine. But even, and this might sound bad, but on the coach end, I fucking didn't like working with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they were lovely.
Yeah.
They were sweet. But
they're not
also,
the
my,
dream- yeah.
it's not my, like avatar client. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be, I think being yourself is important from an integrity standpoint. If you're putting content out, you want to feel good about it.
Yeah.
And then from a work standpoint as well, and just general fulfillment, like I want to be able to, I look at most of my clients, all of my clients, and I could go for a beer and talk shit with them for an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
If I go kick it, like if I'm sitting there for 5 minutes with a client, then we're out of conversation, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, that's
fair.
it. Like, I get on, like, at the end of each training block, I'll have a phone call with a client. Like, that's just, I push that big phone call guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, I think it's just valuable. I think if you're paying X amount of dollars for a service, like,
You want to have that good touch base.
yeah,
there
and I
when you
just
go for-
WhatsApp and Loom. I don't
Yeah,
know. There's a
okay.
degree, but hey, man, what's been happening in the last month? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah, you cover shit and check-ins, but you don't really build that relationship. We get on a phone call with a client, and it goes from 20 minutes. Usually, like, I've allotted half an hour for this block review. We go for 45 minutes, an hour.
And just chatting.
We're just sitting there chatting shit. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's good. Yeah, we cover all what's necessary for training.
Yeah.
And nutrition and the behaviours and what's coming up and goal reviews and this and that, but we're just chatting shit. You know what I mean?
like that. That works well, and that kind of shows that you've attracted people that you actually want to be around, and that's the dream, right? Is that you
Yeah.
work with people that you actually. There's nothing worse than going to work with people that you probably can't stand to be around. Like, that sounds like hell to me. Like,
Yeah,
work
yeah.
where people are going, oh my god, this is going to be a tough slog.
Well, fuck, man. You know, like, no one gets into fitness for dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not a guaranteed thing that you're gonna be making money
That's
going
true.
into fitness and
Yeah.
PT. Like, you got to make sure that you're enjoying this, because
100%.
definitely
It's a
not
slog.
for money.
That's a good point. It's definitely a slog. I think you as well, like, what I loved when we were working together is you were like, you kind of said it, like, you were the lad growing up who bought the magazines and just loved fitness. Is that kind of one of the big reasons you fundamentally got into fitness, is because you've just had a massive love of it since day one?
Yeah, well, like, so I had dodgy shoulders, and like, my old man, he used to bodybuild in the 80s and whatever else, and it's like, yeah, I had dodgy shoulders too. I just did lateral raises, and I was like, all right, cool. And then he taught me about it, and then I watched Pumping Iron with him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck.
Was that the first Arnie one?
It was the Arnold doco, and they covered a few of the Olympia.
Because then they did
athletes.
Generation Iron, didn't they? Which was the Phil Heath one and Kyle one.
Yeah,
right? I
that's
think.
not for me. That one. It's cool, but I don't know. Like, the classic shit.
Yeah.
That's what. Like, that's sick. Like,
Yeah.
even leading into some of the 90s physiques when they started becoming mass monsters. But before
Yeah.
the 90s, I think that was just my, like, geez, these guys are like statues.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Anyway, like, I was into that, and then started getting the muscle mags and whatever else, learned about bodybuilding and this and that. So I was into it. Right, I think when I got hurt boxing Muay Thai, my shoulder started popping out. Got the surgeries. I was like,
All labrum, was it labrum tears each time?
yeah, it's two labral tears. I had something else happen as well. I forgot. It was
In
just-
both shoulders?
yeah, left shoulder first. That happened during a fight, like the first 30 seconds of the
I think you
fight.
just threw a jab or something?
Man, fuck, nah. Came out swinging. Like I was G'd up. I was G'd up. Big crowd.
Yeah.
Everyone I knew from the area was there. Like within the first 3 seconds, like rocked it. I like rocked this bloke.
Yeah.
Rocked him. I was like fairy tale. Like,
Yeah.
this is it. He's fucking done here. He was on the ropes. He's a lot taller than me. He was like 6'3", 6'4", and his guard was up. And I went to throw a body shot, and instead of throwing it tight,
Yeah.
I swung.
Yeah.
And then by the time it didn't, before it hit him, it
Shot
tore.
You
And
must
I'm
have really thrown a load of power.
Yeah, it was bad. It was just like whip.
Yeah,
Like my
yeah.
body had fully rotated,
Yeah.
my arm had abducted.
Yeah.
And then as I went to throw it, it just tore before it hit him, and I dislocated it. I don't know. I thought I just dislocated it. So by the time it hit him, it was like a feather. It just dropped. Yeah, and because it was Muay Thai rules, he got me in the clinch and started throwing knees.
And you probably couldn't defend
No,
it.
you can block knees,
Yeah.
but I was like internally, because this guy, I don't know, he just didn't have power and the adrenaline. I couldn't feel anything, and I'm like thinking to myself when I'm in the clinch, he's throwing knees at me. I was just holding position. Nothing was getting through, but I'm like talking to myself in my head. I'm like, no fucking way, man. I'm like, now.
Had you had a torn labrum before or anything? Or?
So I'm hypermobile, so I'd subluxed my shoulders a million times each.
Got you, okay.
Like I'm fucking that many times. Probably wasn't the wisest, never going through physio and whatever.
Yeah.
But I had no knowledge.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Probably back then as well. That would have been like, when would that have been? Like early 2000s, like 2000.
2013.
So we're looking at
Started
11 years ago. So
2013.
you'd have been like 18, 19 at then?
18.
18,
Yeah. Like sparred heaps. It was all right, but I think it was just the adrenaline of the situation and everything else. It was just a different. So apparently, with hypermobility, with adrenaline as well, the laxity of joints increases.
Oh, wow. I
So
did
like,
not know that.
yeah, there's like this autonomic relationship with hypermobility, and it's when there's the autonomic nervous system is upregulated sympathetically.
Yeah.
You see greater laxity of joints and
that
greater
just to kind of calm
elasticity of
everything down?
ligaments, tendons. I don't fucking know. I don't know the deeper mechanisms of it. I don't know whether it's I'm avoiding learning more about it anyway. But like, I just that happened, and then I'm thinking, well, what the fuck? Like now, then it clicked to me that we were still having a fight, and then I got out of the clinch, fought the rest of the round. I'm like, all right, I can relocate it.
So it was still out the whole round?
Yeah, for the rest of the round. And then my coach at the time, like, love him, but fucking no idea. I used to be able to relocate it, but in the heat of the moment, I just hold my arm and I'll pop it back in. And he starts yanking on it.
No.
Everyone's watching it. And everyone's like, he's yanking on my arm,
So it's
trying to
getting
get it
further
back in.
dislocated.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And, but I can't feel anything. I can't feel
Completely,
shit.
yeah.
And the doctor sees and is like, no, we're stopping this. Because like you can see the trap had just fully depressed.
Oh, fucking hell.
So it just didn't look right. And yeah, that was it. The doctor stopped the fight.
How did you do for the rest of the round? So you
Fine. I just went southpaw and I was just jabbing off the right hand. But yeah, it's just like,
Fuck me, that's such a stinker. How many people were there watching you?
oh, bro, I sold so many tickets.
That's the worst.
Like I was like third fight from the main event.
Yeah,
but
so the place would have been packed. by that point.
ticket sales were fucking.
Oh no.
Like I'd made more money off ticket sales than the actual fight. Knew everyone in the area.
No
Fucking.
way. But at least you didn't get knocked out. At least you didn't get knocked out or anything.
Yeah.
I had I went to watch a few of my friends at the MMA gym that I go to. They had their big MMA competition, so it was amateur MMA, and then they feed into like a pro MMA card.
Yeah.
And I watched 5 of the lads I know, all from my gym, who are all killers, all lose. 4 by knockout, and 1 guy got by decision. And that was one of those moments for me is where like these guys fuck me up on the regular in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, they fuck me up. But then there's always that part, like that ego part of my brain that goes, maybe I could get in the ring one day.
Yeah.
These guys fucked me up. And then seeing them get fucked up was a truly like traumatizing moment. I was like, oh my God, there's levels to this shit, man. It's terrifying.
Anything can happen.
Yeah. And I was seeing people as well, like, especially like, I'm sure you're the same in Muay Thai, but like, it's very different to watching it on TV. You don't hear the thuds. But like when you're in person and you hear like the connection with the small gloves and the big gloves, Oh, it looks horrible, mate. It looks
love it.
Yeah, it looks
I love it. There's something about it. It's probably a good thing that this happened to me.
Yeah.
Because like,
You would have kept it going.
oh,
You loved it.
I loved it.
How many
Loved
times did you
it and
compete?
breathed it. Well, that was my first fucking pro fight. Scar, like it's so shit. Like sparring battles forever. You know what I mean?
okay.
Like, man, and this is the thing, because I'd done it since I was 9. My
Oh,
parents
wow.
were like, you're not allowed to fight. You can't fight until you finish your
As
year
in,
12.
Okay, yeah, so they're like, they just basically didn't want you to get CTE or something.
Yeah, like they didn't want me to do it full stop. But yeah, like I loved it. But because I'd done it for so long, I sparred with everyone in the area.
Yeah,
like
of course.
Aussie champs here and this
Yeah,
and
of
that.
course.
So like we had battles in the gym.
Yeah.
And with guys, I'm like, all right, I know I can hold my own. Like I'd sparred with the guy that was the main event on that card, and like
Yeah.
he was an Aussie champ here, and Aussie champ boxing, and like just because the gym I was at, they knew a lot of people, so I'd been exposed to a lot of stuff, so I'd experience, but never like competitive experience in that respect. And then that happened. Then I'm like, I'll get the surgeries, I'll come back to it, and then I was sparring with the Aussie champ at the time. And we were training partners, and he was prepping for a fight, but I was sparring way too much. I was sparring way too because I was like the young kid. He was sparring like twice a week. We had a few guys in the team, but I was like the young kid. I'm like, I need to. So I was in there every day.
You were sparring most days?
Oh, mate. And my head, I had a headache, I reckon, for a month.
No.
Like,
way.
it wasn't good. Like, I was like their punching bag.
Oh my god. Headgear on.
Yeah, headgear on.
Yeah,
But headgear doesn't do shit, man.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably more the shaking is the thing that fucks
Just
you.
protects you from cuts.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. You're still getting hit in the head.
Yeah.
It's the micro trauma. That's the issue.
Am I right in thinking as well, sometimes having the head guard on just makes your head a bigger target? So sometimes it's actually harder to move sometimes with the headgear on?
Nah. I think you get complacent.
Yeah,
You can get complacent. You're like, I'll get headgear on.
Yeah.
It won't hurt as much. Still hurts. But like, if you're up against the dud, like, you're just like, I'll cop a couple.
Yeah, fair enough. So you had a fucking massive headache after that for a while?
Man, ages. And then it was 2 weeks out of, I'm going to go boxing instead of Muay Thai.
Yeah.
I just like fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I'd done Muay Thai for 15 years beforehand, and I was like, all right, fucking heartbroken by my first love. I'll go boxing. And then went boxing, which was dumb because it's obviously more shoulders. And then 2 weeks out from a fight, my shoulder went again.
Same one?
Right shoulder. And I'm like, I am done.
Had you done any kind of physio or strength?
Yeah. I had two surgeries after that. Did my physio stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know, maybe I needed more stuff during high school. Maybe lateral raises alone wasn't it.
Oh, no, that's a nightmare. So then you never actually got into did you ever have a boxing fight in the end?
No. I was like, I'm done here.
Yeah,
Done here. I need to focus on my career now. My head hurts.
My body's broken. Yeah.
It's not a good sport to get involved in boxing, Muay Thai. Mixed martial arts, I think, is probably a bit better now because it's more a sport, whereas boxing Muay Thai is a bit more like, more so boxing, just a little bit dodgier.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Well, I think that's interesting is when you've got people who are like nowadays fighting in MMA, it's probably mad to think that 15 years ago when they started, there would have been no avenue for it. You know what I mean? Like MMA now, UFC especially, or whatever it is.
Especially in Australia.
Yeah, it's a mainstream sport, right? It's on the TV. It's like you can see a path. You're like, right, if I go to this gym, I can learn these different disciplines, and over time, I might be good enough to go and do it. I think about it like 20 years ago, before there was that path. If you're jumping into a cage to fight people, you're like mad. It's probably the same with Muay Thai. When your parents are like, we don't want you to do this. It's probably like, I can see why. It's kind of like, we want you to go fight.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see the characters rolling through the gym I'm at. My mum's like, what the fuck? What are you trained? She's like, you need to get out of here. Like, this isn't for children.
That's hilarious. Were your mum and dad quite strict on you growing up?
Yeah.
I like that. But that's quite good that they let you do that then. My mum would never.
No, they got me into it because I was like chubby, no confidence kid. Yeah. My dad knew kickboxers from the 80s and he's like, yeah, I'll fucking get you involved in there. Because I'd like never played a sport in primary school. Like, it was just low confidence. And then did that. And I was like, fuck, this is mad. And I'm like, oh, I actually am slightly athletic. Like, what the hell? Like, this is sick. And then, it was just, it was just good.
And then from there, so the Muay Thai boxing finished. And then at that point, you went to university to start studying. Is that what you did?
Yeah. So I always had the interest in it. Just I know we're jumping around question-wise, but like, always had the interest in it. But I'm like, oh, I'm going to become an accountant.
Is that what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was just thought that's how you make money.
Yeah, of
like
course.
that's what you do. Like you get a relatively esteemed job. Like do
Yeah,
that, make
yeah.
some money. It's safe. It's whatever else. It's potential for income. And I went there, and Mum's like, nah, like
Exactly.
you look like fucking a stun mullet. Like he's like, you got to. She's like, well, let's go check out Exercise and Sports. We'll go there. And we went there. I'm like, cool, did it. Hated it. I was like,
really?
yeah, well, I didn't have any context. Like,
Yeah, of course.
do the first few years, I'm like, where can I go with this? You know what I mean? Like, I
that's
had no idea.
Yeah.
Zero. And I just wasn't a good student because I'm like, how the fuck does all this
Does
like,
it apply?
tie in?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I don't understand. And then we get to third year and they're trying to teach you what a superset is. I'm like, I know what a superset is. And then the bloke next to you that's a HD average is like, what's a superset? I'm like, have you stepped foot in the fucking gym?
Yeah, that's
Like,
mad. That's
I'm not-
third year of uni.
Third year of uni.
That's
I'm like,
mad. That's mad.
I'm like, I got no idea. Like, I get it. Like, you got to understand the theory. Now I have so much more appreciation for the theory. And then after uni finishes, I'm studying theory and doing
Yeah, okay.
this. But if there's some context, I was like, maybe this would have been delivered. If this could have been delivered a bit better, I would have been more engaged.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I'm fucking burping heaps.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was just like, I just wasn't it. And then by third year, I'm like, I hate this.
Yeah.
And then I got into an internship because we just had to for placement. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is sick. Like, this is a mad job. Like, the whole S&C thing. I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Where did you do your internship at?
It was Rise,
Okay.
Rowville Sports Academy.
Yeah.
And it was just good because, like, the coaches that were running it, like, that was their full-time job. They were all exercise physiologists, but they were, like, with you. And there were only 6 people, like 6 interns or so per shift.
Yeah.
So we would coach for 2 hours, and then we'd have our breaks, but those coaches would just kick it with you.
That's cool.
So you're just sitting there, like guys that have been in it, they're working with AFL teams and
That's
NBL teams and shit like that. Like, you're just talking to them.
Yeah, that's
you know,
cool.
picking their brain, talking shit.
Yeah.
And you were just so immersed in it. I don't think that internship's like that now, but when I was there, it was mad. Like, it was just so good. Learned heaps. Like, those coaches I learned so much from. Like, this is sick. And then from there, I got my first job at a semi-pro sports team. Hated it. I was like, I got no fucking idea what I'm doing. And like, they're all like, it was like a Croatian soccer club,
What team was it?
Dandenong City.
Okay.
And I'm like, fucking 20 years old.
Yeah.
All the players, senior team.
Yeah. Did they even care about strength and conditioning?
Nah,
They didn't give a
fuck
fuck.
no.
Yeah.
Especially in soccer,
Yeah, they don't
like,
give a fuck.
it's just they don't care.
Probably smoking before the game.
So probably, like, it was good quality soccer,
yeah.
but like,
They
they
didn't
didn't give a
appreciate-
shit,
yeah,
man.
they
First
didn't
day, like, I was there with my mini band. Like, we'll do a mini band warm up. This is 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing mini band warm up.
Yeah.
And then one of the players just snatches it off me. He's like, give it here, dickhead. And I was like, what the fuck? And the coach beforehand had told me, he was like, the guy's going to give you shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, stand up for yourself. And I was like, give it back, cunt. Shouldn't be swearing, so. I'm like kicking off at my first fucking job. I'm like, this isn't good.
That's funny.
And then, like, you build a relationship, but I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no
okay.
idea. Like, I started learning bits and pieces. And then I went, like, lucky the coach, like, I learned a lot with the coach. Went to my next sports team, was the league up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was...
Would that have been, like, at that point, MPL 1, MPL 2, something like that?
So, it was really weird. They used to call MPL 1 the second league. And
Okay,
then just
yeah.
straight up MPL the first league.
Yeah, okay.
And then obviously above it's A league.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it was MPL.
Yeah.
There was a club there, Bulleen Lions. That was fun. Like, I'd worked a year. I'd learnt. Like, they dropped me in, like, mid-end season. I'm like, I can't do shit here. Like, these guys fucking hate me. I'm telling them to weigh in so I can measure hydration and shit like that. They're like, fuck off, man.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
you serious? Yeah. And I'm sitting there, like, with my scales mini bands, trying to get them to do shit. And they think I'm this fucking idiot just trying to help them out. And I'm like, I don't, this is not it. Thank God the second one had a full preseason, actually
good.
knew what I was doing,
Yeah.
like, to some extent. And then the second season there was mad. Like, it was just like, second season's always better than the first.
Yeah.
And then by that time I was working within AFLW and Melbourne Demons, and then like, all right, cool, this is how, like, you know, it's a better setting in the system. And I started like, all right, cool, this is where we can do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is cool. But it just wasn't
I know.
It just wasn't for me. Like, it wasn't fully for me.
Do you find that coaching athletes that are women is easier than coaching athletes that are men? Because I can imagine.
100%.
I can imagine.
100%.
Yeah.
This, like, the second team I worked for was good. Like, the boys were a lot better. You have your couple that are just like...
Just didn't care.
And the issue was I was young too. They start to try and befriend you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you can't... That coach-friend dynamic, like, it starts to get blurred a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was hard. Like, it's hard, but working Melbourne women's, I'm like, you're all weapons. All weapons, go hard. What do I do? Sweet.
They actually care, they listen, they're respectful.
And push, man. The amount of times in men's sport, strength training, I was told to fuck off. And then they like, I'll put more weight on the bar. I'm like, bro, don't fucking talk to me like that. And then you're like arguing with...
So they said you put more weight on the bar.
No, I was like, put more. I'm telling them to put. I'm like, man, you're not doing anything. I'm like, nah, bro, my legs are getting sore.
Like,
and then it's like, all right, I can either argue with this guy,
that's fucking.
or
hilarious.
just something else. Like, I'm training upper body, or like whatever. It's just like, all right, whatever, man.
That's so hard. But I think, especially with soccer, football, is like a lot of lads who play at a decent level. They've never done a day of strength conditioning in life. They just don't care for it. They just don't give a fuck about it.
It's like, and this is the thing, like, maybe they don't need it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, for sports performance, like, some of these guys have never done it in their life and been completely fine.
Yeah. I think sometimes those guys tend to be more injury prone, though. That a lot of the lads in my team who had never played or never done any strength conditioning, I'm like, lads, you need to do something. And they were always the lads with hammy injuries or fucking calf injuries or something. I'm a bit like, I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but I'm definitely like, you don't do anything outside of this, and then you're always injured.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't think you can go wrong in trying to increase capacity.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Capacity for speed, capacity for just taking knocks.
Yeah, of course.
You know, capacity for ground contact, all that sort of shit. Like, you can't go wrong. You know, so it's not useless.
Yeah.
Obviously, but it's just like trying to convince these guys that have done it their whole life. It's not it. And this is where I was like, you're not needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they don't see you as a necessary part of the team. Yeah. So it's like, it was very much different working AFL women's.
Oh, that's different. They're like elite athletes, though, aren't they? Who are trying to be as better.
They care and they value it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot different. But then it's like, that could be chance. It could be the team.
I wonder if
whatever else. It could be top down. Like, if this coach doesn't value it, it flows on. Maybe the players don't. Then I was like, this is good. But then if I'm looking at a life, I'm like, I don't actually like Aussie rules.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's very much like, I love Aussie rules. Like, all the staff, I'm like, I couldn't give a shit. Like, I like physical prep. Love working with these people. Like, this is sick, but...
You don't give a fuck about the actual sport. Yeah.
No. And then it's just like, I'm like, I would rather guarantee that the people I'm working with want to work with me.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? And then it's just like, with what I learned from sports performance and then, you know, bodybuilding and powerlifting and this and that, I'm like, oh, you can actually... build something out here after seeing guys like Alex Viada, who's like the OG hybrid guy. Seeing that's like something that you can do, and then just seeing all the S&C guys, like Christian Thibodeau and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, these guys are fucking jacked and strong and doing explosive power and sprinting and like all this sort of stuff, and they're still animals. Just they're not playing sport.
Yeah, fair play. So they've taken that kind of same philosophy behind it and then applied it to a more concurrent hybrid model of training. Yeah,
exactly. And then I was like, oh, cool, this is... So, this is like the start. I'm like, I haven't coined shit. Like, these guys have been around.
Yeah, fair
You know
enough.
what I mean? They've
You've
been
always
around.
just seen what you like and then you've applied that to your own kind of philosophy.
Yeah. And then if you think of the social media sphere, it's just like very much young coaches that don't know these guys exist.
Yeah.
And then think that it's just hybrid training is a new thing, or... You know, doing this stuff, it's all new. It's like, no, it's not new. Like,
it's not new. It's not new, but it's been almost like redefined by this new wave of like influencers who are coming in. You know, like Nick Bear. You know Nick Bear, he I think for me, he was probably the first person I saw who was doing like the powerlifting, the marathons, and doing all that kind of stuff. So I think he's like influenced a new wave of like coaches and influencers and creators to kind of take on that hybrid kind of training approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that the dynamics of the sport, like, so I'm just going back to the women who loved training and then the guys who didn't give a fuck about training who played soccer, do you think it's the dynamics of the sport? Do you think if you're working with rugby lads whose sport is based around pushing and grappling and wrestling and tackling and explosive sprinting, do you think they would have been more bought into doing the more strength and conditioning stuff? Do you think it's more the dynamics of the actual sport that people don't really care
Yeah,
about?
well, we worked at it was Amy Stadium or Amy
Yeah.
Park, whatever it is,
Nice.
and like you got Melbourne Storm, Melbourne Rebels right there,
Yeah.
and these blokes, fucking
Monsters.
monsters.
Because I think you're a monster. Seeing you lift in the gym, I think you're a monster.
Mate, I was watching the development team, and they're just big Islander boys, like talking shit and then unracking 200 kilos plus out of the rack, like talking to their mates, and then repping it for 2-3 reps, and then re-racking it, and then talking shit afterwards, and like laughing. And that was the development.
Wow.
They're just fucking around. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like then they're running and they're jumping. Like they're just animals. They're freaks.
Yeah.
Freaks. Obviously, if they're playing Melbourne Storm,
Yeah.
like they're genetic outliers in some capacity.
Yeah.
But like these guys are fucking animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like maybe the sprinting isn't. Maybe running isn't, like doing conditioning isn't cooking these guys.
No,
you know what I mean?
I'm
Like
with
you
you.
get it, genetic outliers. But then I don't know. I argue in this day and especially from like I coach coaches. I coach a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe you learning too much is making you fucking soft. You know what I mean?
You mean almost like they're afraid of doing the hard work because they want everything to be optimized for a new training approach?
Yeah, or just like you're thinking too much. Just go harder. Like or you can't fail all the time. Like I'm not saying you can fail all the time, especially like SBD.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a point where that doesn't work for you, and
Yeah.
the fatigue accumulated from failing all the time is just not going to allow you to actually
Yeah.
progress. I get that, but if you're stressing out about like shoulder press, like I shouldn't push this hard. When it's like shoulder press, you can grind out reps.
Yeah.
Grind reps out.
Yeah.
Like being at 3 reps in reserve, 7 RPE is slow,
Yeah.
especially for a shoulder press.
Yeah, fair.
You know what I mean? It could look like like you're about to fail.
Yeah.
But you can eke out another 3 reps. So many people that are just like, I got to make sure just to manage fatigue and this and that. It's like, bro, you are. What are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, just who gives a shit if you fail?
Yeah.
Who cares? Like, who cares? Like, one session you fail.
Yeah, okay.
Like at least you know now it's not the weight you should be working with.
Yeah.
If you were trying to do it for 8, you did it for 4, or maybe go a bit lighter.
So do you think almost like this new approach to training where everyone's looking at their volume and their fatigue and their RIR and RP, it's almost like taking away from the core metric of you need to train fucking hard in the first place.
Yeah.
And you're so focused on these fucking metrics here that you're not even putting the work in a little bit.
Yeah, and then even like for sure, like definitely like the metric standpoint there, and then almost like the biomechanics porn and shit like that. It's not
Yeah.
actually porn, but like
Yeah,
people
man.
geek out of the biomechanics and like, oh, my foot didn't pronate, or like there was a degree of fucking valgus, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I want to internally rotate in there, and
Mate, don't even worry
I'm
about
like, yeah, all right, cool. It's cool to learn about mechanics of a squat, but like,
Does it matter? Also, I kind of preface it and say, like, does it matter at your level of competition? Like, for example, if I'm doing a squat or something and my knee goes in a little bit, or my fucking foot internally rotates, or whatever it is, I think that where I am, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't know. I just think, like, if you're a top 1% athlete who is like looking at like you're pushing massive numbers, and you think that you may be adjusting these small biomechanics can make huge differences to your performance, I'm not like fair enough. But I think for the most part, as long as you can squat deep enough, for example, in the squat position, you can squat deep enough, we can hit a decent range, the load's going up over time, there's no pain, I think you've kind of done the job. That's the way I personally see it.
yeah. And look, I do think, not to like shit on biomechanics, I think like understanding it can help educate your clients. You're obviously not going to be talking about pronation and internal rotation mechanics in a squat. But if someone goes, oh, I heard knees in was bad,
Yeah.
then you can say, hey, it's not.
Yeah,
You know what I
man,
mean? And
yeah.
you've actually got some justification there rather than just saying, bro, don't worry about it, shut up. Like,
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Or like flexion in a deadlift. Like,
Yeah.
you can probably provide some justification as to why it's okay, you know, rather than this person has grown up thinking if they flex their back is bad or knees it into the squat is bad. And then you're like, oh, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's very dismissive and invalidating.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So understanding the biomechanics to some degree to at least help with some of these narratives, I think is a net positive.
That's a fair point.
You know what I
That's a
mean?
completely fair point.
But if it's getting to the point where you're like, fuck, it's got to be a biomechanical perfection for me to do this, or if I can't exceed this intensity metric, like then you're just like, man, what the fuck? That energy is better reserved for saying, I'm going to go hard today, or I'm going to get the extra rep, or push that. And if I don't, whatever, at least I know I gave it my all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know?
We'll wrap up soon, mate, but kind of talking about that kind of stuff, have there been things over the last few years that you've changed your mind on, that maybe you used to believe that you've kind of changed your mind on? Because one of the things I think, especially as a newer coach, I think I'm within 3 to 4 years of coaching now. There's been things that I learned on day one that now I completely you completely just like you've not almost dismissed it a little bit. It's because and I think you go through phases as a coach where you're like, this is the thing, and then you kind of learn to adapt and kind of adjust your thinking.
Yeah, I think it's probably like the pendulum it just comes around. It's funny, like you start out with like this certain sort of model of thinking and understanding. It's like, do your glute activation, annual plan, focus this, focus that. That's where you come out. It's like textbook. Mm-hmm. And then you get to this middle phase of like rejecting all of it. You know what I mean? Like glute activation or isolating the glutes by way of doing this is bad. Everything should be integrated in split squat and B-stance RDL and like this and that. Annual plans are bad because it's just very much just tinker, respond to the emerging data and blah, blah, blah. And don't focus on outcomes or goals because you can't predict that. It's all about process-focused thinking. And then it's like I've come back now to have an annual plan. You know what I mean? Outcome-focused thinking is good because it informs process. It's not this binary thinking of just like, it's either just focus on the process, don't worry about the outcome, it's going to fuck your head or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just like, no. Like, the outcome informs the process, creates a degree of urgency. Like, you got to go somewhere.
100%.
This is like performance-based coaching is objective.
Yeah.
Like, if your clients can't see that you have improved their performance, why are you with them? You know what I mean? Like how are you doing your job?
Yeah.
So there's something there. It's motivating.
There has to be an outcome-based aspect, essentially.
Yeah. And then if your client is stressing out, like, why not there yet? It's like, well, fucking chill out, man. Like, you haven't actually, let's look at the process required to actually achieve that outcome. Have you been satisfying what's necessary for that? No? Okay, cool. Then let's focus on that.
Yeah. Okay.
So obviously if it's, it gets to the point of obsession in that, let's have the conversation. And then it's like the glute stuff. It's like, no, not everything has to be activated. Or not activated, integrated in a B-stance RDL or a split squat. Maybe isolated training is necessary. You know what I mean? Maybe we do need to build up the capacity of that muscle or this area in isolation. And that will help. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I've gone from like, this is the way to... this is the way in a different way.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then everything works in some capacity, depending on context.
Yeah, context and nuance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of what you see online sometimes misses out that context and nuance. It's like they'll give a very black and white answer to a lot of things. I'm like, well, there's a lot of context here that we're missing out on. But there's a lot of nuance here that you could add to that argument. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's it. I wouldn't say it's one specific thing. It's just more with the way of thinking. It's not this way. It's like, it could be this way, could be a bunch of other ways as well. Like, of course, I've got my biases. Like, I'd rather these movements, I'd rather this, and that's just like my bias. But everything works. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah, of course, like there are some things that don't make sense in any context. You know what I mean? But for the most part, everything works.
Yeah, and especially when you say most things work, it's like, have you hit the foundations of is the training hard enough? Have you stimulated the right muscles? Has the form been correct? Like, everything works if you hit those certain kind of parameters, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, without a doubt. And like, you can fully simplify it. Like, training at its core is simple. You know what I mean? If someone is adhering to what you have prescribed, obviously the program needs to be feasible enough for that individual. If they're adhering, if exercise execution's on point, and they're training hard enough, you will make progress.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And then, yes, there is theory. There are different methods. There are different things that you can do to get someone from point A to point B. And some things will be better than others. But for the most part, if you are doing those three things, you are ticking off what you need to. And this is where I feel like a lot of coaches and a lot of people training are just like, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Like, oh, no, I don't have the tools. I need to learn more. It's like, don't stop learning, but I don't think you need to learn more to get on your way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then same with people training. They're like, oh, no, I'm missing this. Or like, I'm doing that. I'm like, man, let's just look at what you've done the last 12 weeks. You were here, and now you're here. Why the fuck do we need to be worrying about that? Like, it's actually not doing anything. Like, what more do you need?
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
good. And that comes with the coaching, like understanding how and when to have those conversations, right? Because that must appear at his head more and more and more. And it's kind of knowing when to kind of step in and be like, look, you've started here, you've done amazingly well to get to here. Fucking don't worry about that. We'll get there, and you can kind of then talk them through.
Yeah, that's it. And never be like dismissive in that way.
Yeah, of course.
It's very much ask the question, like, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah.
And like, why do you think this is going to benefit you? Especially when working with like coach athletes sort of thing.
Yeah,
like,
don't dismiss them. It's probably not a bad, because the more if you come across as dismissive, they'll be like, this guy's fucking arrogant. Like, he doesn't fucking listen to me.
Yeah, exactly. Always be inquisitive, curious. Like, I think that's the way to do it. Because I think coaching as well is like, coaching between like personal training sometimes is very much like you're trying to breed autonomy. Because that's what creates a motivated athlete, and at the end of the day, everyone's going to sack you. You know what I mean? So, like, this is where questions rather than directions will help guide. Yeah, of course, someone's asking a question, give them a fucking answer. Don't be like Yoda and speak backwards and whatever else. Give them the fucking answer, but also like, don't be an ass. You know, guide them, help them make the decision. Like, I help facilitate a journey rather than just say like, this is what's happening. Do that now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because people want to feel like they're making the decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that helps foster motivation more.
Yeah, of course, if they feel like they're in charge of their own shit, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. If people want to find you, where they can find, if they want to do coaching with you, if people want to follow you on Instagram, where can they find you at?
Yeah, just JamieBouz, JamieBouz. That's it for now. I'll have a website up soon, but
nice, mate.
Still in the process. But just there.
Smashed it, mate. Thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
No,
That was awesome.
thank you.
See you soon, brother. All right,
Cheers.
thanks.